Welcome back to the Denver Community Media Final Cut Pro tutorial series with me, Adrian, and today we are going to cover all the tools that Final Cut has to offer. Now, when I say all the tools, I mean all the basic tools that Final Cut has to offer. Final Cut has a lot of tools to offer. We couldn't cover them all in one video, so we're going to go over all the basic tools right now. So the first tool, and probably the most common tool that you're going to use in Final Cut, is the Select tool. So each tool, thankfully, has a handy-dandy keyboard shortcut. So Select is always going to be A, Trim is T, Position is P, Range Selection is R, Blade is B, Zoom is Z, and Hand is H. Now, I will say right now, I rarely, if ever, use the Zoom and Hand tool. In fact, I probably never use the Zoom and Hand tool. So we'll cover those, but you probably won't use those very often. So A is our Select tool. Now, A is exactly what it sounds like. It's the Select tool. You can select any clip. You can move it around. Now, remember, because of the magnetic timeline, when you move a clip around like this clip on top here automatically becomes magnetized to the clip below it. So if I try to move both these clips, or if I try to move the bottom clip, it's going to bring the top clip along with it because it's magnetized. The magnetic timeline, that's the whole gimmick of this magnetic timeline is it's things stick to other things. But if you don't want that, if you're not interested in that, what we can do is use the Position tool. So we hit P for that. So you'll find that in your menu here. Position tool, and that still does that. Okay. Now, let's say that we don't want that. Let's say that we want to have this bottom clip independent of the top clip. We don't want it to be magnetized. We don't want it to be stuck to this clip that's on top of it here. One thing you can do, Option W creates this little gap, this placeholder clip. It's nothing there. It's a null object, but it does have a purpose. So I will move this top clip here. I'll shorten this, and then I can move my other clip to the end of the timeline, and I don't have to worry about it being stuck to this clip here. And I can always lengthen this. I can shorten this as much as I want, and to do other. Let's say, for example, that you want to. Let's say that this clip starts right here. Right. Let's say that we want it to start a little bit later. Let's say we want it to start right there. Okay. So your Trim tool, or if you press T for Trim tool, if you hover your mouse over the clip, you get this little icon, the Trim tool icon. And if you click and you drag your mouse left to right, now you can actually move this around without having to worry about changing the length of your clip. It'll just trim it to wherever you want it to start. So we can make that change there. Hit A again. Now we go back to our Selection tool. Now let's say this clip is too long. So, well, we can use the handy dandy Blade tool, which is B, and then we can cut wherever we want. We can cut it right there if we want. Now, while we're on the subject of keyboard shortcuts, let's say that we are playing our clip. Okay, cut it there. I can hit B, sure. I can make my blade cut, do all that good stuff. Or, since we're on the subject of keyboard shortcuts, we can also hit Command B, which automatically makes a blade cut, which doesn't have to turn on the blade tool necessarily, and it saves you a millisecond of time. But another interesting keyboard shortcut when it comes to cutting stuff is say that I have this clip on top. For whatever reason, I want to cut through all the clips that my cursor is at. So for that, I would do Shift Command B, and then I can put whatever clip I want there between them. Or if I just want to cut the clip that's on the very top, or whatever clip I have selected, basically. You have to select the clips that you want. I think by default, Final Cut will blade cut the clip that's on the bottom. But let's say I wanted to cut this one on top. Same thing. I'll put that back there. Always be wary of these placeholder clips. When you make moves like the one I just made, it will automatically put those there by default, and you have to get rid of those. Otherwise, when you do an export, those might still end up being there. So the next tool in our repertoire of tools is the position tool. The position tool sort of ignores the rules of the magnetic timeline. I can sort of more freely move stuff around in my timeline wherever I want. I couldn't really do this if I had the normal selection tool on. And what it does, not only does it move it around freely, it also will overwrite anything that's in its way. So let's say that I have these two clips. I do my position tool by hitting P. And by default, it's going to overwrite that clip. So you also have to be careful because, you know, it will overwrite it completely. And then if you decide to make a move again, now that clip is gone. So that's what's nice about the position tool, but you do have to be careful with it because you don't want to mess up your edit, if that makes sense. So that's the position tool. The range selection tool is a nifty tool to use. It's got a couple different uses. When it comes to audio, let's say that I want this audio here and this clip is a little too loud. You can see the waveform right there. Let's say that I want to bring just this portion down a little bit. So I'll use my range tool. I hit R, and I literally select a range. I want it to start and stop. Let's just say right about there. Now, if I want to bring that audio down, I hover my mouse over this line. You get that 0.0 dB. That's your audio level. That's the level that it's currently at. And if you click and hold, and you bring that down, now you can see that the decibel level is changing to negative. Let's just do negative 17, sure. And what the range selection tool does when it's activated like that is it automatically creates a sort of gradual fade from 0 dB to negative 17 dB. So that when you play your clip, and you probably won't be able to hear this very loud, but when you play your clip, what's going to happen is it's going to play at the 0 dB level. But when it gets to that portion, that range that we selected, it brings the audio down, and then it brings it back up. And you can move, these are called keyframes. You can move these around very easily. So say that I want to make that more gradual. I can just move those around. The other neat thing about the range selection tool, if we hit R, let's say that I want to export just a portion of my project. Let's say that I want to export just this part right here. So I select that. Command E is your default export option. And what's going to happen is Final Cut is going to only export whatever is in this range. And when I say whatever is in this range, it's not just this clip, but it's anything above it or below it. So if you have a bunch of clips stacked on top of each other and you only want to export a certain part, you can use a range selection tool for that, and it's going to export everything what's in that range that's below it and above it. So keep that in mind when using that tool. So that's a nifty little feature of the range tool. It's got multiple uses, so that's nice. The next tool that we have, of course, so we've already gone over this. It's our blade tool, and again, pretty standard. You just make blade cuts wherever you want to make them. And if you don't want to use the blade tool manually like that, you can always do Command B or Shift Command B, and that'll make your blade cuts as well. So that also has multiple ways of cutting things. And then we have our zoom tool, which again, I don't really use the zoom tool. I rarely, if ever, use it. In fact, I normally hit Z by accident, and I'll get this. I don't see much of a need for it because I can just, if I want to zoom into my timeline, there's multiple ways to do that too that I think are better. Command plus, Command minus. And if I'm all the way zoomed in, at this level, I want to zoom all the way out, Shift Z. Shift Z is your best friend. I use it all the time. It's a good way to just see everything at once. And then the last tool in our repertoire is our hand tool, which is just a way to kind of scroll through your project manually, which I can see the uses for that, but I never use it. So really the big ones you need to remember are select, trim, position, range, and blade cut. Those are probably going to be the most common used tools that, when editing your projects. Select for sure, blade cut probably a close second, range position, and trim. I would say in that order. But obviously, multiple ways to skin a cat. So you may end up using them in different priorities in your editing projects. But that covers the basics of the Final Cut tools and their keyboard shortcuts. In the next video, we're going to get more in depth on how to edit footage in Final Cut Pro. Thank you for watching this Denver Community Media Skill Sharpener video. If you feel like you've learned something valuable, please like us on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube.